Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and Archaven Comics. We've got a lot going on this week, and I'm very happy to be able to say that we have just finished the lettering for Chuck Dixon's Avalon. So Chuck Dixon's Avalon #1 is going to be coming out very soon. Possibly even this week. We'll have to see. But I wanted to talk about an article that I read today on Sports Illustrated. And if you've been paying attention at all to sports, or watching ESPN, or even just turning on the World Cup, one thing that you've noticed is that you can't get away from the politics. You simply cannot get away from SJWs preaching at you, no matter what you're watching, no matter what you're doing. They just keep coming at you with their constant lecturing, their constant left-wing bias, their constant talking about social justice. And you're sitting there going, I just want to watch the game. I just want to turn on the football game and see my team play. Or in this particular case, I just wanted to go and read a simple article about how the summer training camps and that sort of thing are going. So I went over to Monday Morning Quarterback, and it's kind of interesting to see what's going on there because Peter King is now gone. And so it's always interesting to see these transition periods, see how the adjustments are made and that sort of thing. So it actually looked kind of like a reasonably interesting article, except one thing that kind of struck me is that this big lead column on Monday Morning Quarterback is written by Jenny Brentis. Now, there are women who know about football. There are female sports writers who understand the game. But one thing that you'll notice about SJWs in general, and female SJWs in particular, is that they have no interest in the actual topic that they're supposed to be covering. All they want to do is either talk about politics or people, because that's the only thing that they're interested in. And the thing that's ironic is it doesn't matter if you're talking about science fiction, it doesn't matter if you're talking about science, it doesn't matter if you're talking about football, it doesn't matter if you're talking about soccer, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. They always write the same type of stories. Now that's why they're so tedious, because no matter what the subject is, you don't need to know anything about it. You just talk about what the people who are involved in it are doing in their off time. So this said, NFL summer break presents the ideal opportunity for players to pursue individual passions. Okay. Now keep in mind that the NFL is possibly more filled with religious individuals than any other sports league. That's why you often see the prayer circles either before or after the game. There's plenty of guys who can't score a touchdown or be interviewed by the media without making a point of saying that they give the glory to God and that sort of thing. Now, regardless of what you think about that, it's true. I mean, it is. So, you would think that if they're talking to all these players, don't you think there's a chance that one of them, somewhere, might have been involved doing something with a religious organization? Possible? Well, let's see. The first story that they told is how Washington Redskin cornerback Josh Norman went to a Greyhound bus station to welcome migrant children. Now let's point out that something like 83% of the American public is opposed to the continuing migrant invasion. So what we're seeing here is already the SJWs in the media are trying to set the NFL against popular opinion. You think they would have learned from the whole flag thing, right? The second example is how 3 Patriots players actually went to a local political debate in order to help use their platform to address issues of social injustice and inequality. So this is more of this whole, kneeling flag protest crap. The 3 Patriots spent a week brainstorming questions about mass incarceration, the juvenile system, immigration, there we are again, and police-community relations. Okay, how many people in the U.S., how many NFL fans want to continue this discussion? Keep in mind, this is the big weekly article about the NFL on Sports Illustrated. The next one talks about how a Jaguars quarterback has an autistic friend, and he has some sort of camp or charity for that. So, okay, fine, that's legitimate enough. The autistic friend is somebody that he actually went to high school with, apparently, and so it's a legitimate thing. Then we have a story about Google. So they went to no, I'm sorry. He was just it was an open forum for teens. Oh no, this is better. It's actually this is more of the flag kneeling stuff. It's a forum for teens where they're supporting. It came of conversations with Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed, the 2 guys who actually started the flag protest. So Sports Illustrated is still beating the drum for the very social activism that caused the NFL to lose 20% of its ratings last year. Now we have a guy who went to Mexico to help with surgeries on Mexican children with cleft palates. Obviously that's a nice thing to do. That's a laudable thing to do. But again, they're pushing the whole Mexican thing. Cultural stigmas, etc., etc. Then they're talking about a Brian Robinson, Viking, and they are doing rodeo events. Okay, that's interesting enough. A little crazy. The Packers' backup quarterback went hiking in Peru. And then there's a event where there's another Packer-related event helping out cancer research. And then you go on, and that pretty much brings the story of their summer activities to a close. But then there's a whole section on NYC Pride, NFL Pride, how this is the first time that the NFL has sponsored the Pride Parade in New York City. So it's not enough. It's not enough that they are attempting to push migration and they're attempting to push social activism and support the flag protests, but now they're also trying to push homosexuality, using the league to do this. And so what we're seeing, what you see here, is that SJWs in the SJWs in the media are shameless about using any organization with influence, with power, with a microphone to push their own social justice agenda. Now, There is no planet on which you can claim that this is going to be good for the NFL. It's not. And we can blame the NFL. We can blame FIFA for all the idiot SJW BS that they've been pushing. But what's astonishing is the way in which the NFL and other organizations allow SJWs in the media to push this. They allow themselves to be used by outside organizations to push those outside organizations' social justice ideals to their own detriment. There's absolutely no question that the more they push migrants, the more they push gays, the more they push flag protests, the more people that are going to abandon the NFL. For years, my birthday present from my wife was the NFL Game Pass. It allowed me to watch all the Vikings games, through the internet, and it was great. Living over here in Europe, it was really fantastic to be able to watch all the games, to stay up on all the stuff that way, and so forth. Well, last year, after all those activities, I said, no, I'm not. I don't want that. Please don't give that to me, because I don't want to directly financially support that organization. And again this year, I am not getting the NFL Game Pass. Now, I'm just one of many people who still follow the NFL and that sort of thing. But what's killing the NFL is not so much the people who are turning it off. Although that is definitely hurting them, what's absolutely killing them is people like me just dialing it down a few notches, because I don't follow it as closely as I used to, as when I had the Game Pass, because I'd always watch every Vikings game, and I wasn't the only one in the house who would do so. Now, if there's a free game on the TV, I'll watch that. I'm not a fanatic about this stuff. I'm just not willing to spend $100 or $120 or $200 or whatever it is. I'm just not willing to do that anymore. And if you look at other people who are doing the same thing, and many other people are doing the same thing, the net effect of that is tremendously negative. The NFL is not, you can already tell the NFL is not going to make its 10-year growth goals, because they lost so much traction last year. And that's assuming that they're able to start recovering this year. But based on what we're seeing from the media, I very much doubt that's going to happen. NASCAR, when it first went SJW, it lost about the same 10-15% the first year. And of course, they doubled down. And they were certain that they were going to come back from it. But NASCAR television ratings and track attendance are now down as much as 50%. It might even be more than 50% this year. And so I think the same thing is going to happen to the NFL. And I think it's going to be shocking to a lot of people, especially people in the media who've been denying that their SJW infestation is the cause of their problems. They tried to claim, it's interest in the election, it's Trump, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing. But, and certainly Trump hasn't been helping. Trump is using the NFL as a whipping boy because it works for him. It builds up the morale of his supporters. His supporters are not happy with the NFL. And, why not? That's what master politicians do. master politicians hit the enemy in a way that inspires their supporters. And so, it was just striking to me in light. I'm working on a book called Corporate Cancer, and it's about SJWism in the workplace and in the organization and in the corporations. And so, it's been hard to finish because there's so many. Every day there are new examples. Every day there are new events that are relevant to the topic, and it's very difficult to declare an end to it when there's always something else. There's always a new development. Well, not just that there's new things happening, there's new developments in the examples that I was already using. So, anyhow, whoever's spamming this about Identity Europa, please stop that. The comments are not for selling things or spamming things or pushing whatever it is that you're interested in. No, I don't think Identity Europa will save the West, but I think that groups like Identity Europa are integral to saving the West. There is no one group that is going to magically solve the problems. The scope and scale of the problems are beyond that, but the good news is that nationalism is on the rise, and we're seeing that with the collapse of the anti-Brexit British government in the UK. We're seeing that in the new government in Italy, which is very strongly anti-invasion. We're seeing that in Germany with the rise of Alternative for Deutschland. We're seeing that in Austria, where the nationalist right has come to power. We're seeing that in Switzerland, where they're actually starting to discuss whether dual nationals should be permitted to play for the national team. There's all kinds of positive developments that are taking place, and so it's going to. This is only beginning. The pendulum is only beginning to swing back. I've been talking about this for years. We actually hit peak globalism in around the year 2000. So, that's when people still believed in the EU. They still believed in all the world coming together and so forth. Now, it's getting worse in some ways before it gets better. A lot of what we've seen between 2000 and 2018, the situation was better in terms of there were fewer migrants, there were fewer Muslims, there were certainly, the left was certainly less insane, but people still believed. People still believed in globalism. They still believed in the EU. Nobody does anymore. Even the EU apparatchiks don't genuinely believe in what they're doing. They simply believe in holding on to their power. And there's a huge difference between the two. So anyhow, that's what I've got for tonight. It's going to be very interesting to see how things shake out in the UK. It's a little bit disappointing that it's great that Boris Johnson resigned. It's unfortunate that Theresa May not only hasn't resigned yet, but actually managed to avoid having the members of Parliament engage in a vote of no confidence. But I think that we're going to see that government come down pretty quickly, because I think that the pro-Brexit rebels are going to unseat her sooner rather than later. And Trump's visit to the UK probably has something to do with that. So, somebody said it's hard not to get depressed when surrounded by invaders, so your optimism is welcome. Why get depressed? stand up and do something. You don't have to take it. Most of the people around you are just as upset about it as you are. They teach you they demoralize you so that you'll believe you're alone. But you're not. You're the majority. And so, the reality is very, very different than the narrative that you are bombarded with every day in the media. The media lies. Don't believe the media narrative because it is false. It is absolutely false. So, anyhow, that's all I have for tonight. Just a reminder, we're launching War Dogs Inc. Metal Monsters tomorrow. It's a really good military sci-fi book. There's now 3 of them in the series. I recommend all 3 of them. They're good stuff. And very excited to be introducing Chuck Dixon's Avalon #1 very soon. So I'll take a couple questions here real quick before we go. When the new post-USA constitutions are being written, do you think it is worth putting specific restrictions on immigration and naturalization in the Bill of Rights? Yes, I do, because that was obviously a huge mistake. The founding fathers put a lot more faith in the preamble than it was justified. Vox, can you believe that Hillary might run again? Unbelievable. Oh, I hope she does. I absolutely hope she does. That would be wonderful. So, Vox, a large part of our problem is a 0 to 1 problem, infinite obstacles when we don't know how to even get started. We're glad you have that covered and can support you with Castelia House and Arkhaven. I appreciate that. It's very it's very important to me that people see a way to move forward. You don't have to do things the way that I'm doing them, but you have to do something. And at least if you look at what we're doing with Alt Hero, you can see that you don't, how to start something from nothing. And, you're seeing that other people are replicating that. You've seen it with the Diversity in Comics guy in Jawbreakers. You've seen it with Ethan and Cyberbrog. All this stuff is just the beginning. Are you going to put together a timeline for Alt Hero with a suggested reading order between the different comic series and novels? I probably won't, but somebody probably will on the forums. Are the churches in Italy cucked? Pretty much. They're mostly Catholic. Thoughts on who the Supreme Court nominee is going to be? I have absolutely no idea. I trust the God Emperor. We'll see what happens. Cernovich claimed on Twitter the other day that Generation Identitaire are a deep state honeypot. I think that is unlikely, but take him seriously because you vouch for him. I think it is very unlikely, but he may be right. Who knows? I mean, there's probably partial truth to it. Any sort of organization, any nationalist organization is going to be at least partially infiltrated these days. That's just normal. Let's see here. Somebody says, what can I do for you? How can I best serve you? I would say support Voxiversity. That's the growing Voxiversity is why I'm doing these dark streams and why we're building up our video presence. Let's see. Can you do a show walking around your town? Hell no. Let's see. Think we will ever see mass deportations of incompatible people? Of course we will. We have seen it repeatedly throughout history. A lot of people don't realize how many Germans were deported from Eastern Europe. Do you think QAnon is legit? I think at least partially, but I don't think it necessarily matters. Is Voxiversity funding back online? I suppose I should check that, huh? I don't actually know. But if it's not online yet, it'll be online soon. So, all right, well, that's what I have for tonight. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next Darkstream later this week. Have a good evening.